Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well in your world. So, we have another round of big time trades, this time coming by way of the San Antonio Spurs, Sacramento Kings, and the Chicago Bulls. First reported by Robert Garza and obviously confirmed with full details from Shams. So, I'm not going to lie to you. This is not as shocking, and everyone's still recovering from the big time blockbuster deal between the Lakers and Mavericks, facilitated also with Danny Ainge's help. But let's start off with the less controversial Chicago Bulls, who in the shadows I think actually might have really won this trade, because Matas Buselli, who's a sensational player, sensational rookie, 6'11" big, who can do a little bit of everything, will be participating in the dunk contest. And what they got from the Spurs is Zach Collins, a rare stretch five, high energy guy. My favorite years from him was with the Portland Trail Blazers. Scrappy dude. And what makes him interesting is this leads me to believe, seeing how much the West is propping itself up now, looking at what you see, obviously Spurs, Lakers, Kings, and the rumors are Vucevic is being highly sought after by the Warriors if the price is right. I could see this as a stepping stone towards initiating a Vucevic trade out of there to get more capital, more assets. The quiet thing that's going under the radar is the Bulls are getting their pick back. Now, I think they have the 8th worst record in the league, but that still lands them with some lottery ping pongs to be able to get themselves in that Ace Bailey, Cooper Flag sweepstakes that quietly is falling under the radar in this trade that no one's talking about. Also, they got themselves Trey Jones. Why that's intriguing? Trey Jones is a facilitating point guard. He's a distributing first type point guard. Why that's interesting, that's kind of what Lonzo does. They already have Giddey there who does the same thing. Not necessarily looking for his shot, but will initiate for others, even though Giddey has been a little more offensive this year, coming off that Olympic run. So that leads me to believe Lonzo is actively getting shipped or looking to be shipped at this trade deadline, going into a very interesting draft. Not quite as loaded as last year, at least on face value, but it's definitely going to be an interesting draft. And so they might be able to amass themselves some capital. Now, what makes this also intriguing is the fact they got the Red Velvet, Kevin Huerter, who I think is going to be a fan favorite. He's a sharp. You always welcome. So more spacing. Zach Collins is a 30% three-point shooter. Kevin Huerter, Red Velvet, is another sharpshooter who's been struggling, and it was clear as day it was his time to get up out of Sacramento. Every time I watched the games, the last 10 or so, I said, it's time for him to go. As entertaining as the Kings have looked, he just hasn't found his shot. He was really kind of streaky. I think this is a great fresh new start with Buselli's to be able to grow. In Chicago, everyone could use a sharp that'll never grow old. And again, getting that first round pick was key, and it flew under the radar, I think, and went over a lot of people's heads. Now, let's talk a little bit about Sacramento. They got 3 first rounds and 3 second rounds. The key thing with their first round is they got Charlotte's first round, which San Antonio possessed, which could easily turn into a top 15 for sure this year. And so sad that Charlotte doesn't have a top pick, but this year don't have their first round pick. Now the Kings inherited. What I find ironic is like the Kings and the Spurs are swapping destiny. Sabonis is a win now kind of franchise guy, center. Wemby still needs a couple years, at least 2 more years. I don't think he's physically ready, without delving too much into San Antonio quite yet. I find it odd that they're the ones in this trade, in this whole thing, getting the most draft picks, because Sabonis is a win now guy. He's been nominated for MVPs. He's been on the list for Defensive Player of the Year awards. He does look to pass the ball. He is a distributor. He's up there this year. He's number 1 in double-doubles and number 1 in rebounds. He also has, I think he's in the top 5 in triple-doubles this season. So when I'm watching this unfold, I'm kind of shocked that the Kings have all these draft picks. Even though I know they got DeRozan, they got Levine, these guys are in their 30s. They're not getting any younger. I really felt like they needed a four over there. They needed a guy like Collins from Utah, someone to complement, you know, Sabonis. And I think Grant Nelson from Alabama might be one of those type of players in next year's draft coming up out of Alabama. So look out for that. With that being said, I'm watching the Spurs, the Kings, Levine. Well, another reason why I don't like this trade for him is because you finally get moved, you go there. They're both clutch clients, by the way, DeRozan and Levine, and if I'm not mistaken, and Levine taking minutes from Keon Ellis. You need a lock in the playoffs. You need someone who can play defense. That's not the problem with Sacramento. They don't need another wing scorer. He's cool, but he's not the problem. Yes, it's nice to get a bucket getter, but it just offsets your $85 million investment in DeMar DeRozan. Even though Levine has a little bit more of a long-range game, it's like either one or the other one. One of them is not getting the ball, and it's not effective. You know what I mean? It's not effective enough. You're taking the ball out of someone's hands when you do this. I don't like this trade for the Kings in that way. Yeah, you got a bunch of draft picks, but what, you're going to wait for players to rebuild? You're going to wait for players to develop on Sabonis' time? I don't like it. Devin Carter made De'Aaron Fox expendable the same way Fox made Halliburton expendable. Okay, cool, you guys are going to rebuild. This gives me the impression Sabonis is going to be probably leaving the Kings when the time is right, because it's just, to me, and he's young, I think he's only 27, 28, but like the Kings are going to be in full rebuild mode again. I don't like it for the Kings. I don't like it. They don't need draft picks. They need to capitalize on this window and having a top 3 to 5 big man in the league. Also in the East, also moving over to the other team, finally, the San Antonio Spurs. I'm really disappointed in the Spurs. They bit the bait. First of all, it's weird to me that a guy who's been in the league like De'Aaron Fox is rushing to play with a guy who's younger than him and Wemby. You're trying to get under that spotlight, that umbrella, because you haven't built your brand up enough with the Kings. And his career started off very promising. The same way people go crazy over Ja is the same way people were going over for De'Aaron Fox. Fox was once featured on 2K for being the fastest player from end to end dribbling in the league. And now you're watching this unfold, and Fox is out here looking like a guy who is trying to get his notoriety and his name up. He also signed a deal under Steph Curry's Under Armour. He's looking for people to help draw his brand larger. And I'm going to be honest with you, since he's become more of an efficient three-point shooter, he's lost that first step, that blur of a first step that he once possessed that made him so entirely special. I really wanted to see Fox go to Miami. Riley really dropped the ball here. Obviously, there's no way they could have matched the package that the San Antonio Spurs were doing. I just feel like the Spurs over-leveraged themselves. You're rushing to be a relevant team. Everything is screaming just to be relevant. Fox, I understand clout is the greatest form of currency in this day and age, unfortunately. But like everything is screaming visibility, marketing. It's not basketball. You're rushing to be relevant. You're battling the Kings for the final play-in spot. And it seems like the Kings have more have their priorities more in order than the Spurs. Wemby's physically not even ready to play a full playoff. Like, I don't think he's ready for a full playoff run. So what, are you going to go in there to get a couple victories in the play-in? Let's just say, even hypothetically, to win a round in the playoff, you got a generational talent. You have to think smart about this. This draft is coming up. They got a phenom of a point guard, which I don't know what happened with that, but Juan Nunez, and he's not even going to come back from overseas now, I guess. But it's just weird watching this all unfold. Like, wow, you're really going to get De'Aaron Fox. And he doesn't. It's not like this guy knows a lot about winning. He's taken the Kings further than they've been in like 20 years. But he doesn't know much about winning himself. What's he going to teach Wemby? I don't know Fox for being a distributor like that. I know him as being more of a combo guard than he is like, this isn't a Chris Paul 20 and 10 guy, or this is a guy who's a score first guard. And Wemby should be and Wemby's your priority. He's your one. It's nice to have a guy who can get his own shot, but they got guys on Vassell, Keldon Johnson, guys who can go out there and get their own. So to me, I just didn't understand the move again. If anything, there similar needs to the Kings. Get a power forward, if anything, who can actually score instead of playing small ball with Socon and trying experiments like McDaniel and Vassell at the 4. Yeah, and then losing Collins a stretch. I don't like this deal at all for the Spurs. This was bad. They got to the finish line and they fumbled at the 1-yard line, not to make cross-sport references, but just to be clear, this was garbage on their behalf. I don't care how much of a Cinderella story they become. This is dumb. I don't like it. They got too antsy at the last second. Use these 2 draft picks, start building with Wemby, you'll be fine. You literally had the world in your hands. You could do it any way you want, and you chose a shortcut. Getting Harrison Barnes, how many Kings players do you want? It's not like the Kings done anything like to be going after. It's like the Kings going after the Bulls players. Oh, DeRozan and Levine, and then you got Barnes and Fox. Did they win a championship together? I get it. Harrison Barnes is a pro. He's a professional. Fox, he's also a professional. But, they didn't win nothing to be doing all this. I'm not running down the hill. If anything, I'm going to take my chances in the draft. I'm not accounting for roster spots and, veterans, wanting to stick around and all this other stuff. But, it's really time these vets retire, honestly. There's a lot of vets that need to retire so we can get some more young guys in the league who can keep the game moving forward. It's getting stale with all these old heads. I'm going to be honest with you, but at the end of the day, this was a bad move for the Spurs. Poor done trade. I don't like it at all, and I think the one way you could have screwed it up, they did. And that's just me being frank. I don't like the idea of them going after 2 guys like this is Scotty and Michael or something. They don't know anything about winning a chip. You got a generational talent. What is your clock rushing for? Wemby's a twig right now. He's barely able to play back-to-backs. You don't even want him in the playoffs right now. You want to get him another offseason, let his metabolism slow down, get him on a nice bison beef diet plan where he's eating maybe 2 pounds for lunch, 2 pounds for dinner of bison beef. Get this guy bulked up a little bit before you throw him out there in the playoffs. I don't understand what the urgency was about. This was a poor decision. And you know what? To me, the only team that really won in this trade was the Bulls, getting their first-round pick back. All right, Utopians, I'll try to do better next time. Global, out.